If everyone stopped believing in racism, would racism even exist? I think not. Here's another one. If everyone just decided that we're all human beings, I suppose that's where that little seat of separation nestles its way in. Now we consider the obvious fact that there's going to be people questioning that. If racism was just human race, human racism, I suppose people like to dissect race, as in like a running race, a race to whatever they're choosing, a race to what else could e-race? Then they say e-race, but that still makes no sense. Racism, in the sense of yeah, I suppose it's when a label gets slapped on somebody and then they choose to try and somehow go, oh, okay, well, that's what you call me, like, I guess that's what I am. And, but I still, like, I'm telling you, I care. I'm telling you, I have a sense of pride in just being inherent in human need. And then I would question, I guess it seems nauseating to some, maybe behaviors don't fall in line with expectations, but that happens regardless of who's who or what's what. Regardless of who's who or what's what. I think jumping to conclusions and sort of grasping a single or a smaller aspect of what someone's saying and then smearing that across to be tested, and then it's brought back to the person way out of context, and they're forced to sort of on the spot, like, sort of solve this problem that's being presented to them. And and again, and then that's a cycle. So during that sort of attempt to solve, that may be seen as, oh well, they've got no ground to stand on it. And again, it's more about, it's not so much like I'm not defending any race. And that's hard to comprehend, I suppose, for people who may be, I suppose, just trying to find some sort of a grip. I don't know why, and I've really, I'd be dissecting their reasoning to say why. Like, I mean, if I was to try and have a grasp on let's just say hypothetically, because I'm not talking about any of my direct lived experiences, but more of overall generalized wisdom. And see, even the word wisdom seems to be jacked up onto a pedestal. Um, Wisdom is more of like, it's sort of a something that goes hand in hand with a bit of patience. I don't want to go ahead and say patience like with my accent because yeah, it's wisdom comes from being able to sort of see opposites as one thing. And that, again, that's not a consistent way of being like, oh, I see an opposite in everything. No, it's, it's, the patience is where, and meditation is where those opposites become one thing. And, I suppose to say important things feels risky when you look around at, the state of the world. But hey, back to the point. So, if I was to go to some part of the world where I've never been before, and I'm just there, and obviously there'll be things that I find amazing and things that I find humorous, and it's it's not about hiding feelings. It's about finding what the feelings are in their form. So if I was to, you see, a good way to explain things is to put them into a like an overly sort of a way in which there's nobody seriously living that way, then you're not personally attacking anyone. So, you know, and the thing is too, we've got to consider that, let's say a young person who's 18 years old right now, some hypothetical young person named what? Look, this is a young person. I'm 18 years old, and oh yes, I'm the future of humanity. We are forging a path, and then me being in my early 30s could like sort of, okay, well, the 18-year-old, I'll tell the 18-year-old, look at a 5-year-old. Now, do you remember what it was like to be 5 years old? And they go, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, no, that 5-year-old is going to be the 18-year-old when you're 30, mid 30, whatever. You do the fucking math. And it'll be a different world. See, when I was 18 years old, things were fairly different. When I was, what, 10 years old, we didn't even have, like, I think that's when computers, internet, like, and computers were available in houses, and it was like you would have to not be using the phone in order to use the internet. And those big boxy, slow computers, and yeah, it was the phone hanging on the wall or of the house, or on the kitchen bench or wherever. And mobile phones were kind of like, technologically wise, the equivalent of, let's say, like geez, I don't even know, like a, let's say, a new generation AI robot, as in like a physical robot. That would be sort of the frontier of what mobile phones were then. And for instance, if someone wanted to ride their bike, their push bikes, pedal bikes were ridden everywhere by young people, and young people would, have to go around and approach someone's house for the first time, because they'd known that there was someone their age that lived there, and they would go around and, oh, does so and so live here? Do they want to play with the soccer ball or the football? Or, and we would just say, you know, oh, do they want to come and play? Um, and yeah, um, and when I was, say, 18 years old, um, yeah, it was quite different, put it that way. So yeah, if an 18-year-old now is to talk with, say, a early 30-year-old, and try and tell them how everything is, well, that early 30-year-old was likely, well, was the first young people to be clicking every button on computers, and figuring them all out. And obviously computers have changed, technology, software's changed dramatically. And yeah, young people nowadays are quite skilled, and they're it's something though that's often taken for granted. Um, None of these people invented any of this technology. Uh, and so what we're left with, that through the lens of someone my age, I'm often left with just this feeling that, that you can't deny a feeling. You can react to feelings differently. You can choose not to react to feelings and sit with them. And I suppose that's where wisdom comes in. So, yeah, if I was to see a young person, um, really stating their personal truth or their personal narrative, it doesn't really affect me. I mean, sure, if they were to release a published book about a topic that seems relevant enough for my personal life, or something that seems, like it may be, really influential for many people of the world, then yeah, sure, I'll read that book and I'll read every word and likely be quite delighted at at what any given person would produce. Yet, I think the sheer force isn't really. It's hard to find a spot for respect for just sheer force. Um, I mean, when we talk about sheer force, we're usually talking about sports, physical activity, weightlifting. Politics isn't about sheer force. Education isn't about sheer force. Um, I want to continue talking because I feel like I'm on a good sort of what would have been coined as train of thought. Often we consider this too, right? Like coming back to the point of the massive changes in technology and the ways of life still easily remembered by people, into their mid 30s and ages that are beyond that, is the yeah feelings are real. Reactivity is different to feelings, and we're left now with a generational communication barrier. And I suppose a way to comprehend this would just to be, take a few notes, one or two words that I've said, and find a definition of them, and don't come back to me with it. Like, I mean, there's no you're literally not extracting it from my head. You just, you just, yeah, like, because as soon as your attention is diverted away by whatever means you may have, there's no, there's nothing at cost there. I mean, your reality is just what you train yourself to believe, and the good thing is neuroplasticity. We can always be training ourselves to believe like new concepts. I mean, yeah, think again, like before the internet, the notion of the internet would have had to been sort of somehow tethered to the idea of phone technology, which would have come from telegrams, postal services, and we could trace that right back to, even footprints of different animals on the ground. So you could take a note on that, and I would just start talking about something sort of, so that train of thought is sitting in its station, if you would. And yeah, so sorry, I often yeah, when I sort of get into like a journaling mode or a talking sort of mode, even this could be considered therapy for me. Um, yeah, it's almost like I get the vibe of goodbye, like in my head sometimes. And look, I'm not worried what that means. It's probably like, oh, he's all good, goodbye. Like something within myself that was sort of just keeping me stable or safe. Um, because there's language models, um, self accountability is a good way to be able to sort of give yourself that space to meditate. I would challenge anyone to sit there for 1 hour, and meditation can be quite funny. You may find yourself, because I know I have, you may find yourself, you know, suddenly wondering whether to sort of sit there and as though as though looking toward the open air and seeing clouds go by. You know, the clouds could be like feelings. They shift, and you might wonder, oh, okay, what do I see in that cloud? Or you might, shift that perspective back and forth, and that's kind of the hilarious, tormenting nature of meditation. Um, it builds tolerance. It builds awareness, um, and provides a good grounding for people who were born well before you to be like in gratitude of leadership skills that it provides a sense of relief. Um, so again, I would challenge to consider, you know, imagining someone who's much younger than you doing something that's surprisingly wise of them, and noticing how relieving it feels. And that it's a reminder that we care about humanity and the human race. Um, Also, though, on the topic of cultural appropriation, um, it's not my responsibility to have to sort of speak for any other um, culture that I'm not accustomed to. It is beneficial to immerse oneself into different cultures here and there, but keeping in mind that maybe before doing that, it could be beneficial to sort of consider what approach I would take, or you would take, or they, them would take before before deciding if it's a us against them kind of idea, even like giving up the sense of self pride needs to be grounded in a reasoning chosen by the self. Otherwise, it could lead to feelings of racism. And it goes across the board. I mean, um, when when people say born before the 2000s or even before the 2010s, I suppose, even today. But back to the point, pre-internet, it was very common to spend hours on end playing with, Lego men, or playing with toy dinosaurs, and making them have conversations, making them live out sceneries, and or playing with racing cars, pushing them along, or action figures, wrestling characters, and even teddy bears. Just, yeah, I mean, um, and I think it was healthy in retrospect. I mean, surely it wasn't unhealthy. You see that's the balance of, is it healthy, is it unhealthy? It's the same thing there. Whereas, like that whole idea of some sort of notion being having to be measured for it to be valid. Like, if I say I'm strong, I'm sure someone would challenge that and say, no, you're not. That's strong. Okay, well, they're not strong. A blue whale's strong. Like, it goes nowhere. You see, maybe I'm strong, with the opposite of that being I'm not strong. Well, it's like, it's the same thing. It's just maybe a feeling at the time. Yesterday I was strong. Today I'm not feeling so strong. Tomorrow I might feel even stronger than I was before. Um, and my definition of strong could change at any given moment too. I mean, I could be. No, I think, yeah, to be honest, strong is just simply physical strength. Resilient is the other one that may be popping up in this whole generalized language model that we're living in. I'll provide an example of that idea of a language model. Like, so, if I was to see a sign, now obviously that has been, heightened to a sense of dismeaning. Um, like a sign was, I guess, akin to indicator. Um, yeah, the sign was the simplified sort of one version of an indicator. So, and there's not, there was a Buddhist quote. Now there's many Buddhas, so it was to do with, it's a perspective, and I choose to agree with it, though it's something that has to be lived out over time, which obviously in meditation you learn to deal with that sort of feeling of tormenting within. And so, the belief in psychic phenomenon is something to be feared, something to be loathed. The belief in psychic phenomenon. So it's not, if you are seeing what you think is psychic phenomenon, it's not what you're looking at that should be feared and loathed. And we're obviously, you know, in a human social time where labels and stigmas seem definite and forever, and we're living in a time where, and hey, beliefs can be, you know, translated through patience and understanding. Um, and so, yeah, we could definitely alchemize the terms, the terminologies that have been used today. Like, don't take it personally because, for fear of others taking things personally, we may continue on this sort of detrimental annoyancing. Um, so yeah, I'll say I honestly don't believe that a baby that has been born has all of its characteristics and personality sort of laid out before them. Like, often we use that sort of personal space of um, the personal space of our right to take ownership of our own life, to then sort of revert it and try and, as a defense, and we try to sort of stamp our identity onto our right to have a story. And the beauty of that is that it's much easier to sort of choose what you want to do with that and do it easily than it would be to sort of stamp it on someone else. For them to take off something that was stamped on them by someone else is much, much harder than trying to rewrite something that one would have stamped onto their own narrative. Um, and yeah, some people do get to the point where if they've had stigmatized or, like horrible sort of accusations stamped onto them to the point where it's just like, oh, well, fuck it then. And a survival mechanism kicks in then. Lack of trust. Um, yeah, full disregard for belief. Um, and obviously in rushes in more stamping out of, no good reason at all. And yeah, it's dangerous to talk about these things and these topics due to the fact that it's going to be taken personally. Maybe that's because it resonates something or echoes back to you. Well, obviously, then you have the right faculties to understand what I'm talking about. I don't speak for everybody. Um, well, see, that's an interesting point there too, because that could be interpreted in different ways. You see, if personally what I meant by it, well, actually, personally what I meant by it is that I am not appropriating anybody else's voice. Um, that's what I mean by I don't speak for everybody or for anybody else. I'm not appropriating anybody else's voice. Um, but what I would say is that if I was to speak for everybody, I'm speaking in a purpose for the benefit of everybody. But can you see there's a massive emotional distance between those two meanings? Um, and I only just realised it as I'm talking. Like I said, could be therapy for me. And, and I wouldn't have done this if I didn't think it was going to benefit me, whether that benefit is speaking for everybody in that second sense, or whether that benefit was just to comprehend stuff in my head, get it all out, put it into a space to prove to myself that I'm not sort of hiding away. I'm not protecting my. I'm not paranoid, and to you don't have to answer every question. I could be just going along with the topic. Like, if we consider some sort of notion of what whatever whatever constitutes, or I don't know. Look, I'm not here saying I'm a scholar. I've never done a university course. My highest educational degree is a certificate 3 in plumbing. Um, so yeah, obviously, just because I said that, you could dismiss everything. But I've read quite a few books, fiction and non-fiction. Um, I've actually, had a little go at diving into a physics book, and I found it quite useful. Um, and yeah, like, uh, I find what personally fits my sort of stability of mind best is a certain philosophy. I like the left-hand path, which is defined by non dogmatic, um, and I suppose that could worry some people whom are afraid for my sake, um, which again is like that stamping a label that's much harder to sort of make sense of or even have to give an answer to when it's coming from somebody else in their words. Um, I'm not. I'm not. I'm literally not talking to anyone right now. When this video gets posted, um, it will be a matter of minutes, hours, or days, or even weeks before anyone sees it. And likely it was 41 minutes and 37 seconds into the video. Likely no one will ever see this part of the video. Um, that's highly likely, I think. Um, if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments, and I'll be delighted. Um, but if you're going to do that, maybe give me some fresh things to contemplate, that are non-dogmatic, some philosophical quizzing. Maybe you could try and review some of the things I've said, but keep in mind that I'm likely not going to even remember this word for word, or probably barely even have the same perspective by the time I wake up tomorrow morning. Um, so, yeah, I guess I'll say, in this spirit of an adversarial current, uh, like a personalized definition of my own, the things that I like about myself and I like about other people. I'll say, chew on that.